Sup shitters, my name is Logan aka Sputterhands and welcome to SP Reviews, where today we got ourselves a track by an artist named Wessjester titled Money Grip. Switching over to here, we've got ourselves Money Grip. We're going to make this full screen, listen to this from start till finish. Hear what we think.
When your mom says you can't get the new DLC.
The music does sound quite mournful to reflect the fact that you couldn't get the DLC. You know, like, everything makes sense so far.
So you ask your dad, and he says, go ask your mom. You say you've already asked her, and he says, what do I look like? I have no DSL money grip. No
Damn, man, the dad spitting those facts.
DSL money grip. No DSL money grip. So you tell your mom that you asked your dad, and he said to ask her. She says you already asked me, and the answer's still no. So you tell your mom that you asked your dad, and he said to ask her.
I'd like, to be honest, I can kind of relate to the whole asking one parent then the other thing, and then being like, no, seriously, there must be a way that I can change the answer from no, right? I think everybody's tried to do that. You at least try it once.
You are what we call a DSL money grip, a DSL money grip, a DSL.
I like how we had this kind of very straightforward kind of melodic performance in the start. We had a very sort of simple sort of vocal melody with most of the sort of color coming in with those guitar parts.
Money grip, 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 money grip, grip, grip.
Have Money Grip kind of chorus line, hook line repeated here is nice.
Up, 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 and they ask you a lot of questions. Everyone in school finds out that you had a hot guy. They find out that you had a hot guy summer. And then they remove your picture from the yearbook. And you end
I liked how there was a very subtle little piano run on the right. Like, Westchester knew that it was a bit of a risky move, but he put it in anyways, and he balanced that well.
at a fast food restaurant because no college wants to accept you because you got that DSL money grip, that DSL money grip. Then they remove your picture from the yearbook and you end up working at a fast food restaurant.
Damn, man, that got dark real quick, didn't it? It's for real, though. It's difficult when you don't have a lot of money.
No college accepts you because you got the DSL money grip, the DSL money grip. So you tell your mom that you asked your dad and you said to ask
I mean, she kind of digging how that piano is interacting with the guitar parts and the bass line and everything else involved with this.
her, and she says you already.
There's like a nice wah wah kind of mild sort of like a warble going on with the synth pads in this, and the kind of two-note chord progression. Boom, boom, boom. Oh no, it's three, isn't it? Yeah.
Ask me, and the answer's still
They kind of resolve themselves into it. It goes into kind of like some sort of major thing with pianos, and then it goes back down to the minor for the second half.
still no. The answer's still no.
Oh, boom, 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 boom. That's the dominant seventh chord actually on the piano.
So you cry online and so
Actually, they're all dominant seventh chords, aren't they? On the piano.
what you could do, what you could do, what you could do, and from then on you're what we call a DSL money grip, a DSL money grip. Then the cops show up, and then they ask you a lot of questions, and everyone in school finds out that you had a hot guy summer. Yeah, then the cops show
There's a lackadaisical kind of quality to the way that the vocals are being done in this song. It's like Westchester is telling a story that he's intimately familiar with and very comfortable with, and just wants to share it with you. It's a very kind of chilled out, relaxed performance from Westchester over top a lot of the sort of tension and drama within the music itself and instrumentation.
Then the cops show up. Yeah, everyone in school finds out that
Yeah, that boom, boom, boom. That theme there is very simple. It kind of resonates throughout this entire track, and it's neutral enough that it can fit well with all the rest of the elements, you know, including like drums and everything like that.
Summer.
You got like a 16th note, dun 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 dun, a 1 and 2 and a 3. Yeah, no, it's got 16ths in there, 16th note groove, or 8th note groove with 16th notes intermittent.
A hot guy summer. A hot guy summer. Yeah, when your mom says you can't get the new DLC. When your mom says you can't get the new DLC. So you ask your dad, he says, go ask your mom. You said you're already master, and he says, what do I look
And we're revolving around to this after the talk about
money grip?
getting a minimum wage job and getting in trouble with the police and all that.
Some money grip. So you tell your mom that you asked your dad, and he says to ask her, and she says you already asked me, and the answer's still no. The answer's still no, so you can go cry out.
I don't know. Have you listened to anything like this recently? This is very different to what I'm used to listening to, and I've been listening to a lot of a few, not a lot, a few experimental artists recently.
And some creepy guy says, I know
There's some really wild music out there, isn't there?
what you can do, and then from then on, you're what we call a DSL, money group, a DSL. Then the cops show up, they ask you a lot of questions, and everyone in school finds out that you had a hot guy summer. I know.
Good job, Wes. Good job having this sort of little break here from the constant kind of kicks and snares. I like, at least the drum beat's a little more sort of downcast. I like that. I like that sort of like loosening in the intensity of it. Oh, that bass line's nice and punchy in it. Is that it? Wild, man. Wild. So the song was actually 4 minutes 20, right? 4:20? It was 4:20. Nice. Everyone have a great time. Money Grip. DSL Money Grip. So the song was about, like, from what I understand, about like the struggle of being able to afford like stuff like DLC and other things, and then like it kind of being a part of a greater issue of life, people not having money, so they struggle, and there's just a cycle of kind of garbage that can come from being in poverty. You know, it's not just the little things, it's also the big things, and it all comes down to a lack of funds, and it's just kind of a particularly less than ideal situation, really. It's wild how much, you know, not having necessary kind of support in that regard can really screw you up. There's always, you know, you hear stories of people who've managed to find a way to the top despite it, but, you know, for a lot of people, either they don't have the opportunities to do that or they don't have the ability to. And regardless, you know, they can't afford that DLC. The music was actually reasonably well done. I liked the guitar parts and the piano parts, how they intersected together. I wasn't expecting dominant 7th chords to work that well with the drum groove, but I think those extended kind of colors and that added a nice sort of bit of extra textural quality to it. Sort of kept it sounding fresh and interesting throughout. I think if it had not had the piano, it wouldn't have maybe made sense for this to go over 4 minutes. Having those layering, that little bits of development is something that Wessjester has continued to improve on and make gains with, and I'm very thankful for that. It's really great stuff. Yeah, the performances themselves, like the vocal performance from Wessjester was typical Wessjester. I'm very familiar with Wessjester's work. It's recognizable instantly. He has a sort of vocal timbre and the way that he sort of like communicates that is very much him. You're not gonna get like a Michael Bublé or like a Mariah Carey kind of performance, primarily because that's just not Wessjester's style. You know, I've heard Wessjester be a little more sort of like melodic in the way that he sings, and a little more sort of like there's sort of like instrumental technique and stuff, like vocal techniques showing like trills and ornamentations, legato runs and stuff. But in this one, it was more of a focus on the story that's being told as opposed to trying to sort of flex his skills as a vocalist, I think. I think it was kind of interesting to loop back to the concept of not being able to afford the DLC and that money grip kind of thing, and the dad talking about it and all that was an interesting touch as well. It's a very sort of unique take on it, despite the fact that I think a lot of people make songs about how they wish they had better situations. But this is what's kind of cool about what Wessjester does is he doesn't like take it from that perspective. He literally sort of describes the situation and certain certain songs where it doesn't really bring it back to himself. It's more like a thing that he's describing, and it kind of makes it seem a little bit less centered around the musician and more about the idea, and that can make it more of an attractive, interesting listen for people. Because a lot of singers, sing about themselves. A lot of singers are very sort of they're centralized around themselves and their humanity. But Westchester likes to talk about other people and other things, and I think he likes to have fun with it as well. He didn't sound too terribly depressed in this one. It might have been a little bit bittersweet, but it just seems like he's sort of sharing more of himself with the audience, and that's a healthy thing, I think, as long as it isn't too sort of detrimental to himself as a human being. And yeah, the loudness of the track overall was pretty good. Like, I think I've got my headphones at like 33. Yep, nope, nice and loud without it sort of being overbearing on the behalf of YouTube's audio compression. And again, it was like the right length. I think if it had been the full 5 minutes, it would have been too long. But he knew to walk out at the time he did, and it was effective. And having that nice little kind of drop in intensity in the latter half of it was smart move. I mean, like, Westchester has written thousands of songs, as I understand it, and that progress is showing. I haven't really heard a weak track from Westchester in like a tremendously long time, And when I say weak, I mean one that just either doesn't make sense to me musically, or it's like quite rough in terms of the production or anything like that. No, not that I really have those issues with Westchester anyways. I think when anyone's writing music, it can be difficult to get the hang of production, but for the most part, Westchester stuff is reasonably well mixed. Yeah, I think I've spoken about everything I wanted to. It'd be cool to hear Westchester's takes on more stuff like this as a part of an album, but we'll just have to see what happens. We'll see what the future brings us, but that's effectively my review of Westchester's Money Grip. It was an interesting story. It was told well, there were no sort of chromatic or sort of areas of disillusionment with the way that things were written and the way they behaved. It was a smart sort of composition for Westchester. And it was familiar for me as a reviewer, having listened to quite a bit of him at this point. Hopefully you enjoyed the song. If you did, please do go show Westchester some love on his various social medias and YouTube page. Stay cool and stay safe, and remember, support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need all the help they can get with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. Actually, there's one more thing I've thought of. The bum bum ba da bum 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 kind of theme that I heard throughout that kind of reminded me a lot of like the kind of 90s games, like the Spyro games and stuff like that. And it kind of makes me a little bit nostalgic because I was a kid in the 90s, and I can remember having that sort of thing where like, why can't my parents buy me stuff? And it just kind of, that music reminded me of that. And I wonder if it's sort of a similar situation for Westchester, where like maybe he's sort of reminded of the music back from the 90s into like video game music and stuff. Because he's talking about DLC, isn't he? It all comes back full circle, I guess. But please remember, support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with the great stuff going on in the world. Catch you next review. Spider hands up.